What is up, y'all? My name is Aaron Sawyer,
Matt Michaels.
and this is the Refreshed Cast, and we are back with an amazing episode today. Let's talk about childhood trauma, shall we?
Yeah.
Childhood trauma.
Nice, bro. Jamming out.
Where to start? Where to start, man?
So, my journey with the childhood trauma stuff started with learning about attachment styles. So, attachment styles are basically how you relate to the relationships in your life. So, there's three different options. You can be secure attachment, which means you just have secure attachment and it's a healthy relationship dynamic. You can have avoidant attachment, which means that you're basically avoiding conflict. You more tend to keep things internal and not share to avoid conflict. And then anxious attachment, which is usually like an obsession about the relationship, always wondering what the status of the relationship is, always wondering how their partner feels. And it's really centered, their happiness is dependent upon their partner's happiness.
Really external.
Yeah, it's all about that. And the avoidants are more internal.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
So, with Callan and I going through our relational issues, we got into some communication coaching, which goes into attachment styles. And all attachment styles really stem from your specific childhood. So for me, my mom was very overbearing, helicopter mom, controlling, kind of like
Miss Michaels.
and very much like an anxious attachment. So she was anxious towards me to fulfill her needs for love, right? So she's showing me all this love, but it's really because she needs that love, right?
Yeah.
And so to me, that neediness was repulsive, so I would push that away. And so And then on that, my dad was bipolar, up and down all the time. You never know who you're going to get. So again, kind of distanced myself through that too. So now in all relationships, I tend to be avoidant. I want to keep people away. I want to avoid conflict. I just want to avoid all of that. Whereas Callan is more of an anxious attachment. She felt like she didn't get the love and attention from her mom that she wanted. And so then she's always wanting more of that connection.
Come on, man. Come on. Let me, dog.
Exactly.
Like, where you going? And then you're like, but I'm so internal. We've reached the gates of my heart.
There's a wall there.
I've experienced both. Like, I've been hella needy and I've been hella detached.
Totally.
It kind of depends on the dynamic. And,
yes.
Reminding myself that secure attachment is the goal and it is possible. Because, it's so easy to say, well, are you anxious or avoidant? And it's like, well, let's all work towards bringing secure attachment into our consciousness and working towards it.
Totally. And that's the thing, you kind of touched on it, is you're not always avoidant or always anxious. Typically, one person in the relationship is going to take one or the other on, and then you'll fulfill the other side.
Yeah.
So it's like I've been with another avoidant person, and I found myself with more of these anxious tendencies. But that's not my normal MO, but she was so avoidant that I kind of fell into the anxious category with that. And that was not a pleasurable experience.
And the streets version of that, like, she got me tripping, dog. Like, she got me fucked up.
And she did. And
and it's so funny because whenever we say, oh, she's tripping, bro, like, she got me fucked up, she's crazy. What that really translates to is, yo, she's anxious attachment. She's external and I'm internal, and I'm afraid and I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to give her A, the help she needs, or B, away from me. And that can turn into some very intense situations.
Totally, man. And that is the dynamic between the anxious and the avoidant. The anxious needs more and more and more, keeps pushing more, which pushes the avoidant further away, and they're pushing away. So it becomes this very toxic cycle until you learn how to communicate, navigate, and then come into a state of secure attachment. And so Callan and I have done that work, done the communication work, where we live in a place of secure attachment. She lives her own separate life, I live my own separate life, but then we come together, and so we're interdependent. Mm-hmm. We don't need each other. We're independent, but then we're also love to have our time together as well.
It's like my dream, your dream, our dream.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So that was my first introduction to kind of how our childhood impacts our relationships and things like that. So after we lost the baby, I was really stressing about us bringing the baby into the world and having the finances for it. And I found myself really struggling with my nervous system and regulating myself. And once we found out we lost it, I realized if I don't do this work on myself, I'm going to pass this down to my child. You know, and so do you know who Gabor Mate is?
Oh, after the men's group, if you're in Tulsa or Oklahoma at all, pull up. We're throwing a retreat as well. Yeah, I do. I've heard of him,
Okay.
and the book is in the Amazon cart. Because I'm like, Gabor Mate.
It's good. I've been burning through all of his online content, basically.
Cool.
But he's talking about, you know, even if your parents never made any of the wrong decisions in how they treat you, but they had all of their own internal conflicts and anxieties and depression, energetically the child is going to absorb that and it's going to be programmed into them. And then, of course, parents are going to fuck up and mess up their kids because that's just part of it. So you have that on top of it.
I think of alcoholism comes to mind.
Oh,
whenever,
totally.
You know, like, and so, you know, they say you carry carry the sins of your father.
Right.
You know, and so, and the topic being childhood trauma, like, you know, from my understanding, you've been doing internal family system therapy, and what's that shown you, and how's that helped you process some of your childhood, I guess not just trauma but dysfunction as well.
Well, I think the main thing, so IFS is really about, through trauma, you kind of become these separate parts to protect yourself, right? And so it's about identifying those parts and then bringing them back into the whole by healing them, essentially. And so for me, when I started digging into the work, we really started with my birth trauma. So I almost died when I was born. I had a lot of lung issues, so I was moved into isolation immediately. And then the typical trauma of being vaccinated, poison rubbed in the eyes that they call vitamins, and then getting circumcised. You know, that's all trauma.
Just the regular baby car wash.
Yeah. Right. But the main thing was I didn't get put in my mom's. I was C-section born, so I didn't go through the vaginal canal. I get that probiotic bacteria from the vaginal canal, and I didn't get the skin-to-skin contact. I was immediately put into isolation. So the first thing that I learned when coming to this world is not safe, and I'm on my own.
Very Scorpio moon birth.
So yeah, no doubt. So the first thing that I had to do was change that internal narrative that the world is not safe and it's all on me.
When did you start that? Like, when did you?
A couple months ago.
Wow.
So
congratulations on
thank you, bro.
Identifying that.
Well, and it was really wild because, you know, this past year I've been so dysregulated. I've been having a hard time even doing the things that I need to do for my business because of the dysregulation. And so what she told me to do was to start put myself in a meditative state and envision myself holding a baby, and that baby is me. And then showing that baby unconditional love and letting him know that everything is okay and that he's protected and that he's safe. And so I started doing that on a regular basis. And she said, basically, anytime you find yourself super dysregulated and, you know, in burnout, go in and do that real quick. So typically when I'm in burnout, I wake up with impending doom and anxiety. So right then in that moment, I would just close my eyes, visualize myself holding me, and let myself know it's okay, it's safe. What do you need today? So instead of condemning myself because I can't do this or that, I'm not doing enough, all that, it's okay, what do you need today? And basically for 2 weeks, I just kicked it, and I did what my internal child wanted to do. Go outside, meditate, just do things that were really fulfilling for me and calming for my nervous system rather than beating myself up. And then I was out of dysregulation. Like, I started feeling a whole lot better pretty quickly. And I was doing this meditation, and what I decided to do was the Ho'oponopono prayer to my little baby self. So it's I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. And it's not necessarily me, because obviously I didn't do anything to me, but sorry about the circumstances.
I'm identifying sorrow within you. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, 100%. You don't feel safe. You don't feel protected. And it's thank you for doing the best that you can with those feelings that you got brought in the world. And I love you because, well, one, you're me, and you're the eternal breath of God, just as everything else. And as I was doing that Ho'oponopono prayer with myself, I just started getting a release and crying. And that was huge. And that's not an easy thing for me to do, to get that release. And so that felt really healing for me. And then the next step was, she basically said, as you do this work, other memories will pop up, and then as you get older throughout your childhood, and then that's the next thing. So the next narrative that I've been struggling with is that I'm not good enough, so that I can never do enough. And that stems from, like, I remember in elementary school, when I had big projects to do, my mom would just do them for me. Like, I would start them, she would be like, oh, yeah, no, let's do this, and then just end up doing the whole thing for me. Or my dad would, like, look at my paper and then basically just rewrite it for me. So,
Like, so you're getting that anxious helicopter mama that's like not letting you grow. Hi, mom. Sorry, we're just identifying the past. We love you.
We've
in
been
the
talking
present.
about it. We're good.
Yeah, we straight, dog. But in '05, y'all was tripping.
90s.
So,
90s.
right, sorry, dude. I'm fucking 90s, baby. I was 7 in '05, so that's funny. But yeah, so mom's being anxious attachment, and dad is kind of like being avoidant, like internal, like, this, you're not good enough. Let me go into my world and show you.
Well, really, it's all about, like, they just wanted me to do well. It's from a place of caring, right? They love me. And so in their mind, they're not thinking, like, he's not good enough or anything like that. They just want to help me succeed. But the narrative what I learned from it was that there's no point in me doing anything because it's never going to be good enough anyway. So fuck it. Why even try? So I just ended up doing drugs and not doing anything and didn't give a shit about school. And it's interesting because my brother lived in the same household, had the same experiences, and instead he became a perfectionist and a people pleaser. And he had to graduate second or first in his class in a class of 1,000 people, and he had to go to law school. But he ate himself to death, basically. Now he's obese, so
shouts out.
Yeah.
No disrespect.
And I chose drugs. So we both chose different routes to know ourselves, but we both reacted to the trauma much differently, which
the average American family.
Yeah,
for real, bro. And like, that's funny how one kid will become the goody two shoes, kind of like, oh, let me, you'll attach to a certain parent. Like, I remember definitely me and my sister competing for our father's love and attention. Dad's a workaholic because he's not happy with his situation at home, so he's
with his wife.
Yeah, but my pops would stay in the driveway for 20, 30 minutes waiting to come inside, just to get some fucking alone time, because he knew that it's like you walking on eggshells around '05 Jamie, you know what I mean? And I'm proud of the how my mom has evolved as well, and it's very your coping mechanisms. It's like you become the delinquent, your brother becomes the lawyer, but that's not where the story ended because of this work. Like, what I mean? Like, you were able to find some sort of correction with your behavior, albeit after, like, hitting a ton of walls and reaching a really intense rock bottom. Like, I'm gonna fucking die if I don't, turn my life around. Which is the perfect place to be if you're there. You know what I mean? It's great.
Yeah.
Great opportunities lie within that. And you see how you can identify these behaviors and sort of come to a resolution of, oh, this is why I'm doing this.
Totally. And I think that's the beautiful thing is, like, no matter what, I mean, we're all going to get some kind of trauma. And I think people get caught up on, like, trauma's getting beat or sexual molestation. But trauma is anything that you did not know how to handle emotionally and just got stored in your body. So it doesn't have to be this huge thing. It's how it impacted you or how you perceived it. And I really like this saying. It's talking about whatever happened to you as a child is not your fault, but as an adult, it's your responsibility to recover from that and take responsibility for it and heal yourself from it. And so the whole point of this type of work is to go back into those memories and reparent yourself the way that you believe that you were supposed to be parented. So if I go back to this, I see myself sitting at the table watching my mom do my project. It's like I intervene and I talk to myself and I'm like, hey, this has nothing to do with you. This is her own issue. And really she's doing it because she loves you. She wants to see you succeed. She doesn't know the negative harm she's doing to you. And you know what? You could absolutely do this project. Even if it sucked, who gives a shit? Because you always suck before you get good at things. And so you're just reparenting and then that's creating those new neural pathways for those memories. And that's how you heal. And
it's like the butterfly effect in this motherfucker, bro. I remember I've written letters to my younger self. My therapist gave me that, sort of outline or recommendation and just being like, at different ages, like, I'm so sorry for what you don't know. I see where you're suffering and what, I feel like a lot of it is just you grow up in this environment with there's just a darkness. There's just an inherent darkness with where society is at. It's like that Piscean age shadow of like straight dysfunction. And you grow up thinking that these things are cool. Like you grow up on American Pie. You grow up on, oh, everyone's partying I don't think that's by an accident, but healing is possible, bro. And a lot of people, it's important to treat trauma like, I don't know, people's relationship to their trauma. A lot of people are like either parading it. Oh, I'm so traumatized. It's like this sacred, it's like an idol worship.
Identity.
Idol worship. Yeah, forming an identity around your trauma is very ill-advised, or it's one of those things where you treat it like a scary monster under the bed and you don't fucking, you don't open that treasure chest, but our message here today is when you open that treasure chest, you'll find a lot of, if you can allow yourself to feel it and really just be sometimes objective about what's going on. You're not so much that you're rationalizing and avoiding the feelings, but just identifying. You can start small. Yeah. Just identify one thing about, okay, what's something I would like to work on to turn around,
Totally. And identifying it and then actually doing the work to heal it by doing these types of systems. And then you integrate that back into your life. And it really is, it's been a beautiful practice for me so far. And I've started using it with my own clients and have seen some really cool things come out of it. And the light bulb's just turning on. I had a new client come in and, we were talking about changing the diet and everything and what I wanted to eat. And she came back 2 weeks later and she's like, fuck this is stupid. Like, if I can't eat these foods, it's not worth living at all. And instantly I'm like, that's the inner child complaining, right? Like, it's just like a kid, like, if I can't eat it, then I'm not eating it. Well, then I'm gonna die. And so we start talking about it more, and I'm asking her about her childhood, and she's talking about how she was abused as a child, or she watched her mom get abused a lot. She doesn't remember her childhood at all, but these are all stories she got from her siblings, and they hid her underneath the stairs as her mom was getting beat by their drunk alcoholic dad. And her first memories really start at 5 with a new stepfather, and they live on a farm, and that's when she gets introduced to Hostess and Ho-Hos and just all the fake processed foods. Whoa, right? Bro. So then that new dad was extremely strict. They weren't allowed to do anything. They were isolated on the farm. So she started using sugar and food to regulate her nervous system and to suppress her emotions. And then it's the only source of joy that she has because she's not allowed to do anything. So now, 40 years later, she's working with me and I'm telling you, hey, get rid of all these things that you've used to regulate your nervous system your entire life.
Matt's like that surgery game where you're diving straight to the ho-hos and you're like, I'm going to take this away. And they're like, fuck you, bro. Don't take my ho-hos. And then they're reliving, so in their body, they feel it viscerally. They go back to whenever mama's getting tossed around by the step.
Right. And so now she doesn't have the tools that she used. And so once we actually dove into that, I was asking these questions, bringing this stuff out. I just watched her relax. It has nothing to do with the food. It's all about, it's the addiction. Just like I used drugs and alcohol, she used food. And so once you take that away, all the emotions are going to come up. And you mentioned it before. You have to see what the problem is and then feel it to heal it. And that's just the process.
Yoga helps, bro. Yoga, fucking
breathwork,
helps.
meditation,
all that. Go into a half pigeon, bro. That way you're not just crunched up in a chair trying to feel it. Really dive into your body, the somatic nervous system, and shake that shit out of you, bro.
I love the somatics. That is amazing. Just the different breath work and the shaking.
Bioenergetics. I'm lucky to have been introduced to that at a young age, to where that became almost a fun thing. I was doing that even with a part of I was addicted to drugs and LSD, but I was also doing deep internal work off the LSD, on some Timothy Leary shit of doing the yoga and bioenergetics and sitting with these things that helped me psychologically process, but also learn that you can't promote stuff like that because another kid took it and fucking tried to run away from a shadow because he was in the wrong environment. Someone scared him. and he ran on to through a field, knocking on someone's house, like completely almost possessed by fear and evil. So I don't recommend LSD because not everyone can handle it. But yeah, this is my experience.
And if you do use psychedelics, doing it in a container with like shamanic leadership to actually deal with that type of stuff is really important.
Like with us.
With Jared. Hit up my boy Jared.
Shots out.
Ceremony. So
I'm finna hit one in December, bro. We're talking about it. So should go to Rise Against and also hang out with Jared in a dome and fucking go hard, bro.
I'm not doing any more psychedelics at all.
Yeah, you're right. Like, you mess the nervous system, like the crash. I forgot you said that. And, like, Iboga being the one thing you were open to, or the one that your spirit felt resonant with.
Yeah. And it's interesting, speaking of psychedelics, I have another client that's getting into a somatic program to learn how to do it and lead people through it. Kiara actually is doing the somatic teachings.
So cool.
And she was talking about that. He talks about like most people are living in fight or flight, but some people it's so severe that their nervous system shuts down. The only way to bring the nervous system back online is using psychedelic medicine to bring that nervous system back online, which I thought was pretty interesting. So I do think it's great medicine, but it's just not for me at this time.
I fried my fucking brain off the acid. I don't be tripping. I took a grab one time and it was just fucking weird, and we were seeing each other's teenager self, and I was like, fuck, man, this just, I'm older now. I'm too old for this shit, bro, you know?
Yeah.
But like, and that's what I realized, and like, a lot of people are in different spiritual stages. Like, I had to understand, you know, just in meditation with myself, some people are pre-spiritual awakening. Some people are going through it right now.
Yeah.
Some people are in that new spiritual awakening stage where they feel enlightened, and there's like different processes there. Some people are past that and they decide to ditch it and ditch away all their studies and spirituality and try to be of the world. And then you kind of reach that part where it's like, okay, no, there's some serious work. It's like Ram Dass, he's saying, dude, every time I take a high, there's a low. Every time I take acid, there's some crash. I need to go sit in silence and shut the fuck up and meditate with the guru all fucking day. I need to chant and om and sit in silence all fucking day, because that neural pathway to enlightenment and consciousness is steady. It's steady there. And if you're combining that, maybe you can get a natural high with some bioenergetics, but the ultimate thing is detaching to the state, the point of awareness of the center of consciousness, like to be able to be awareness and be okay with that. It's not very easy because, you know, I'd be over here fighting childhood sexual trauma and all this fucking bullshit, but just you work your way through that.
Isn't it interesting how, like, if you watch kids, they naturally just regulate themselves. Like, if they're frustrated, they're like, ah, and they just shake their bodies, they fall on the floor, and they're like,
and we're like, someone get this thing to shut the fuck up.
And because we literally get that out of them, we don't want them to regulate themselves, so we don't have that ability ourselves.
Because that reflects poorly, like, if I see you regulating yourself, then I would have to actually regulate myself, and I've suppressed that so much.
Like most people don't even know that they're dysregulated. Like, they don't have any idea what regulated would be.
Could it be, we don't like to be too intense here at the Refresh Cast, but could it be that you're slightly dysregulated because of childhood trauma?
Childhood trauma, or just the fact that you're like, I mean, think about these single moms out here. You're working a full-time job. You have 4 kids. You got to get them from this place to this place while doing your work, plus taking care of you. Like, how dysregulating is that? It's like impossible. I can't even imagine.
No sleep. And that's why it's so important for the divine masculine to step it the fuck up and be there for their families. Be there for your woman. Be there for your brothers and sisters and aunties and uncles, because, you know, there's a lot of people that have been abandoned by the masculine, and that's their core wound. And, you know, they have to sacrifice themselves in order to provide for their family, and they don't get a chance to. Now, my message to women that might be resonating with that is do the IFS work. The best thing you can do for your kids, it's not like, you know, it's kind of choosing your daily intake. Maybe on the way to pick up your kid, you're listening to pop music on the radio or some gossip podcast. If you switch that to doctors, you know, yogis, internal family systems therapists, you can find that. What's the dude's name?
Gabor Mate.
Gabor Mate. Bump some Gabor Mate on the way to pick your kid up and just get the ball rolling. It's not like you're a lost cause. You're the fucking biggest spiritual gangster out of them all, holding all that shit.
And to kind of pin you back on that, Gabor Mate actually talks about that. He's like, the best thing that you can do as a parent for your child is do your own internal work, because anything that's not resolved inside of you is going to be downloaded into your child. No matter what. So that is the greatest gift that you can do. And that's why it's become so important to me that I do this work before we bring a child in this world, because I don't want to download him with all the psychosis that I've gone through my entire life. So it's very motivating to do that kind of work.
Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to encourage anybody out there that has childhood trauma, that's been struggling with addiction or these patterns or cycles in their life, to look into internal family systems and look into the history of what created these cycles and patterns, so that you can bring them to the surface, feel it, release it, and reparent yourself to become the individual that you know that you were meant to be.
Dude, and that whole aspect of psychosis, and we were talking off camera and you said that your therapist said that, or you told your therapist that you've thought about it all before, right? You've already come to this conclusion. She's like, well, you seem to be intellectualizing. Now it's time to feel it, right? And so
totally,
that psychosis was a gift in that you've already fucking thought about it. And you've done a lot of the internal work, and because you dove so deep and we're so close to death and the lessons of the shadows, you're able to just objectively say, hey, I'm a little fucked up, but here's X, Y, Z, da-da-da-da-da. And, you're able to kind of, from that disassociation from the nervous system. But now I see you coming back into your nervous system, doing the yoga of feeling it. And I'm proud of you, brother. And I'm on the same mission, man. You got to feel it to heal it and make it, reach out to your people, reach out to us, reach out to community. Or we got a dope community that we're building. So, you don't got to go through it alone, because that can be a very isolating process. And that's probably not good if you're working through childhood trauma. Probably good to have a few supportive friends.
As you're saying, we are designed to live in community, and most families do not have community. We don't have extended families living together anymore. So most of us are lonely or alone altogether. And so, I think that finding a community of like-minded people that are all doing the work has been one of the biggest blessings that I have ever found.
The Refreshed Cast.